Thank you again for joining us for our next webinar series for the second year experience. We are really excited to have all of you join us today, and I'm super excited to have our guest, Brooke Harrington with the Academic Success Center. So I will pass it off to her to introduce herself and her department.
Thanks, Ashley. So we're with the Academic Success Center. So I am one of a group of 8 advisors who work primarily with first and second year students. So we serve as primary advisors to first year biology majors, first year management majors, and a select group of other students from various majors across campus. And then for all freshmen and sophomores, we work with them with any academic counseling outside of academic advising during the 2 to 3 weeks each semester that take place in preparation for the spring or the following registration period. And then we also work with students who need to drop classes or need to change their major or concentration. To begin the process through which the registrar will make those administrative changes, but then it also allows the students to have a conversation with us if they have questions about maybe what a major entails or if that's a good major for them. Any number of questions that may go through a student's mind when they're thinking about what am I going to major in or what kind of job am I going to have when I graduate. So that's when students come to the Academic Success Center. So typically we're working with freshmen and sophomore students or anybody with under 60 credits. So that said, there are times where advisors just are not available on campus, primarily during holidays when we're working throughout that time. So students are always welcome to come into our office. When they become juniors or particularly seniors, they might have different discussion points with their advisors that a freshman or a sophomore might have. So that's why we direct them to their faculty advisors whenever the opportunity arises. But for freshmen and sophomores who are still kind of thinking about what classes do I need, what major is best for me, that's when they come in and talk with us. So that's a little bit of an overview on us. I'm going to start my slideshow. Let me save or share my screen first. One sec. Can you guys see my screen at this point?
We can, but the slide has not started.
Okay, I just need to, it's going to take up my whole screen, so I just want to make sure.
Awesome.
Let's see, let's just play from start. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay, so as Ashley mentioned, my name is Brooke Harrington. So I wanted to start off with a poll, but our polling wasn't quite working. I don't know if the red flash, can you see the red flashing in the background, Ashley? Oh, okay, I'll just leave it as is then. I didn't want to upset it. So let me just ask you then, Ashley, since you're the only one, tell me a little bit about the semester for you, how it's been for you this semester as compared to your first year at UL. Can you share with me a little bit about kind of your experience? Are most of your classes online? Are you having some in-person classes as well?
Most of my classes are online, and it's definitely been a big switch.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge that you're finding with this semester in terms of the classes? Is it the actual trying to learn the material online, or is it a disconnect between your professor and you? Is it a disconnect between you and friends, or kind of?
I think it's a lot of things. Not being around people so much kind of has an effect, and when you need help, you don't always get an immediate response.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. Well, I'm glad to hear, though, that you're at least reaching out. So that's always a good thing, right? We get really worried when students are not reaching out, because unless the students come to us, we don't necessarily know that they need help. So you are reaching out, so that's a good thing. If it's to a faculty member for a class, there's not a whole lot we can do. I think there's always another route to, make sure that you're attending class, maybe making notes in Moodle or sending messages through Moodle as opposed to email. That would kind of be my suggestion. I know not all faculty respond as quickly as others do, and so there is kind of that requirement of some patience sometimes for students, which can be hard, especially when you're working on something and you kind of need a more immediate response, even if that's, a few hours or even a half a day. So, it is tough, and kind of having different standards in different classes can also be really tough. So for the academic success center, we try to help students with these types of challenges. Again, we can't necessarily connect you with your faculty member, but we can give you other alternatives, and that might be connecting with the administrative assistant for that department or the department head to see if there might be another connection that you can make, or have your questions answered by somebody else within that department. But if you have questions, outside of the immediate class, then we'd like to be able to help you, or if we don't have the answer, we can help you get that answer. And that might be just as far as recommending different resources on campus, whether that be the Learning Center or the Writing Center, Disability Services, the Counseling Center, or just things that we talk to students about in here. It's just kind of nice to know that you have an outlet where you can go and somebody's there to hear you and be with you through that process. So that's a lot of what we offer here. Is like, if you went to the orientation last summer, it's, when you have a question, don't have anywhere else to go to Lee Hall, right? We can always help you. So we're here, we're in person, some of us work remote on some days and then in the office the other days, but there's always somebody in Lee Hall that can help you, either meet with you or, help get your questions answered in one way or the other. So, so this is our team in the Academic Success Center. So we have the advisors, and as it's set up right now, advisors during the advising period advise particular majors, and then throughout the rest of the year, if students come in for drop-ins, then we advise each major individually. So this is our team. And as I mentioned, we work with students about academic counseling, making sure they're taking the right courses if they have questions about their degree plan. We help students drop courses, because at this point, students can only add and drop during that first week of classes. After that, students will come to the Academic Success Center in order to go through a manual process of dropping a class. So, and then the same holds true with changing a major. If you want to do that, change a concentration, add a minor, whatever the case may be. If you're a sophomore or junior, then you will come to the Academic Success Center to do that as well. And we'll work with students to then get in contact with the registrar's office, who will actually process that. Okay. So the sophomore year, the expectations for advising may be a little different than what they were in your freshman year, because you go from freshman orientation, kind of a whirlwind advising experience, just kind of essentially helping you pick your classes for fall, right? And then in the spring, we had COVID, right? And so then a lot of that was remote advising. So again, a very different experience than being able to sit down one-on-one with somebody and really talk about it. I know a lot of people tried to do the Zoom over spring, and it worked, for some. Other people tried to do a group advising through Zoom as well. So it varies through department, but I think this fall, they're kind of trying to manage it a little bit better, holding both in-person and remote advising opportunities for students. But what isn't really outlined in the freshman year are the expectations that you should have when developing a relationship with your advisor. So the first thing to know is that advising is a partnership. So it's a give and take relationship with your faculty advisor. So that is to say that they are there to provide information, resources, guidance in terms of a graduation plan. But at the same time, there is a student responsibility now that you've gone through your first year. You should know how to read the catalog. Sophomores now have access to DegreeWorks, which is our degree audit system that outlines exactly what students need for graduation. And so it helps now when you're developing this relationship with your faculty member, who may be a different advisor than you had last spring, to show up to your meeting prepared, whether that's through Zoom or in person, right? So you've done your research, you've looked at the catalog, you've looked online on the department's website to see what courses are needed, do you have the prereqs for those courses, and you're ready. So you're coming there, you're prepared to ask questions, and then also just kind of getting to know one another, right? Your advisor is probably starting to ask you about, like, why are you the major that you chose to be? what are your interests, kind of learning more about you and your skill sets and what your ultimate goal is with your degree. If you are not familiar with how to find your advisor, who may be different from your freshman year, you will go to your portal. If you go to the Academic Success Center's website, there is a step-by-step outline with pictures that show you how to find your advisor. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and I can look it up for you. It'll be on your student profile. One thing to keep in mind is right now your student profile is defaulting to fall 2020. So it'll have your courses that you're taking, how many credits you currently have. Then in the top left corner, it'll say fall 2020, and that's actually a drop down. So if you move that and select spring 2021, and then I think if you just select it, it'll automatically go back up and run it. And so if your advisor has changed, you'll see who your advisor is now for the next semester. So, so something just to keep in mind when looking about that. Again, you can easily contact me. My email address will be at the end of this presentation. So feel free to email me or asc@louisiana.edu, and we can always look it up for you. So when you're going in to see your advisor, you've already looked up the catalog, you've looked up courses that you think you need, make sure that you've had the prereqs. So some things to think about now as a sophomore when you're meeting with your advisor is, do I need a minor? So some colleges or majors require minors, others do not. So if you do need a minor, the question is, which one is good for you? That said, just because you don't have to do a minor doesn't mean that you shouldn't. You may have extra time in your schedule. Every student needs 120 hours to graduate. And so sometimes just the major alone, major in general education courses alone, do not total 120 credits. So you have time in your schedule to either take electives or you have time to add a minor. A minor is typically 18 credits. Sometimes, depending on how the major and the minor work together, that might be 6 classes, which is 18 credits typically, but sometimes it'll only be 5 classes if a lower division is counting, let's say, for a general education as well as a minor course, for example. So, but when you're thinking about a minor, it's, do you need it? What's the benefit of doing it? And so that's really kind of like, you have a side interest in something, or it's complementary to your major or a career interest that you might have. So just something to start thinking about and talking to your advisor about. The next thing is, do I need an internship? And a lot of sophomores don't necessarily think right now about actually going into the workforce and what do I need to start preparing for in order to apply for jobs. Internships are so valuable for multiple reasons. One is that they help you get a little bit more real world experience about what your career could potentially look like, what that office environment would look like for a potential job that you may want to have. It gets some hands-on learning experience. And what I always tell students is, even if you think you've had a terrible internship experience, it's still a good experience, because even if it's not going towards the direction that you wanted, it's at least something that you can cross off the list and say, that is something I definitely don't want. If that means I had a terrible boss, I had to stay indoors all day long, I couldn't go outside, you know, I didn't think marketing was as cool as it's going to be, you know, things like that. It just allows for a little bit more experimentation and experience so that you can mold the classes that you take and your major around kind of what you learned from that internship experience. And do you need to go a little different direction than what you had thought was going to be appropriate for you? But I always recommend students start internships as much, do as many as you can, and then start as early as you can. The more experience you have to start building that resume, the better off you will be in finding a job after graduation. When you think about what skills do you need to be more qualified for jobs, that's a good question for your advisor as well. They can help you think about things of like, let's say if you were going to be a marketing major again, just throwing that one out there, of do you need math skills? Do you have to be creative? Do you really need to know your accounting and econ courses that are required for that major? Like, what are the advantages to that? But again, what skills are going to be particular to make me exceptional in that job, particularly when you think about yourself being compared to somebody else who is also graduating with a marketing degree from UL? What sets you apart from somebody else when you're applying for the same job, for example? So any extracurriculars that you can add on to that, any leadership experience, communication skills are humongous. There's just not enough good communication skills. And I mean that orally and in writing now, particularly in a world that is so dependent on social media. We've lost a lot of ability to articulate our thoughts as well, and then to write well. So I would encourage everybody, no matter what career field they're going into, to really work at developing that, because that's a huge area that employers say they are in desperate need of, is good communicators. So, and then the last question, of course, that every student should be asking every semester is, am I on track to graduate? Now, a student can come in and ask that, but at the same time, you have to say, okay, what is my graduation expectation, right? So if somebody transfers in with, let's say, 2 years of credits, their graduation date may be different than somebody who had started here as a freshman, you know? So you want to think about, when is your goal date? Let your advisor know that you want to graduate in fall of 2024, and then, you know, kind of work on a plan to make sure that you are on track, because not everybody's on the same, not every sophomore is graduating at exactly the same time. So again, just something to keep in mind when you're going to meet with your advisor. All right, and so then we can talk about, is the major right for you? A lot of times sophomores start taking more of their major courses. And so again, what they thought might be a really good major for them isn't necessarily what they thought it was going to be. And so to help students determine if it is a right major, you want to understand the degree requirements, of course. And that requires looking through the catalog and looking through the course descriptions. And do those course descriptions sound of interest to you? That's the most important thing. You have to be engaged and interested in the classes. It's also a question of, are the classes not easy for you, but do you enjoy them? Do you enjoy the work with those, right? So that's not necessarily meaning that it doesn't come easy to you, because there's nothing wrong with working hard for a good grade in a class. But if you're a computer science major, but you just don't like math at all, it's going to be a problem. And every semester it's going to be a struggle. And so is that really the right fit? And so then you talk with your advisor about, okay, here are my skill sets. This is why I'm interested in computer science. So since I don't really necessarily have the math skills to get me through computer science, what might be an alternative means to a career that I can still aspire to do this type of work, but with less math requirements? And so that, again, is trying to figure out what that major is, but those are good conversations to have with an advisor. And you also want to think about, again, those skills that you need. Could be math, could be communication. If you don't have the skills right now, is it something that you can develop going forward? And that's part of college, right? You're learning, you're growing. So it's okay. You don't have to be perfect at anything right now, or honestly, even by the time you graduate. As long as you're improving and growing, that's really all you can ask of yourself. Try to be the best version of yourself. That's it at the end of the day, right? And so what does that look like for you, right? And so hopefully that major or that career that you choose is going to complement you and make you even a better version, because you're doing something that you love. It's maybe for the greater good. Whatever it is, it's bringing joy, right? Or pleasure, or whatever it is that helps you to feel satisfied with what you're doing. If you aren't sure if you're in the right major for you, there's a few options. If you meet, there's a major and career exploration center through Career Services, and they offer 2 type of assessments. One is Choice 360 and the other is Focus 2. So you can take one of these assessments, and then it will provide feedback and recommendations on majors and careers based on how you answered the questions, right? And that's going to include anything from aptitude to skills to interests. So once you take that, you'll get the feedback, but I always encourage students then to meet with somebody within that office to dig it a little bit deeper to find out, okay, why did this appear? I never thought I would be an accountant, but it shows that, you know, it's kind of one of the top responses that I'd be a good accountant. So why is that, you know, and kind of understanding it a little bit better, and what works best for you. Another resource is the Strengths Finders, and this is going to go a lot with your own personal strengths and your commitment to work, your personality trait, motivation, all different things that aren't necessarily skills like being good at math or being good with your hands. So it's more of a an internal look at your strengths that then kind of articulate that into potential jobs or careers that might be suitable for you. Okay. So that concludes my presentation. Again, this is my email address, so feel free to reach out to me with any questions, but I can take questions right now if you have any, whether they're general questions or you have something specific about advising or anything I can do to help or clarify any questions that you might have.
So when I go to the catalog and I try to look at like the catalog for my years, it says that they're archived and I can't find them.
Okay. Let me pull this up for you. Ooh. Oh my golly, I have a little spelling issue today. All right. Let me share my screen again. All right. What is your, oh, yep. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Catalog?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what catalog year are you in, Emily?
So I'm looking for the 2019-2020
okay.
computer art and animation major, and then also a minor.
Okay, so you have two options, and I will pull one up. Are we still recording, Ashley?
Yes, we are. So I can close the recording really quickly, and then we can help Emily figure out all the stuff. Does that
okay. I'll go
sound
through
good?
Catalog just as kind of another sort of demonstration, and then I'll show Emily her degree works as well. But for your catalog, Emily, so you can go into an archived. It just means it's not the current one, so it always defaults to the current one. But all the information, so even if you go into an archive, it's all still accurate for you. So if you're looking for your curriculum page, so this is essentially your 4-year degree plan. Now, every student can come in with, and maybe your student, maybe you came in and had no credits, right? So then you could just follow this degree plan with no problem. But let's say you transferred in with both of your Englishes, for example, and maybe you also did your literature course. So then you could have a little bit more flexibility with your schedule. Now with the catalog, you can click on any of these and it will show you what the course description is. And then it'll also show you if there are any prereqs to those courses. And so that's the beauty of the catalog. All the information is kind of right here in one place for you. But again, in terms of your personal 4-year degree plan, it could vary a little bit. This is a recommended one. And because some of these do have prereqs, there are certain sequences you have to follow. That said, you know, you could take your math elective in your senior year, for example. You could take a science in your senior year, even though it's listed in your sophomore year. So it has that flexibility as well. Do you have questions about this specifically, or?
No, that answered my question.
Okay, good, good, good.
Well, great.
Any other questions that I can answer for you about advising, or do you know when you're advising? Have you been notified that you're going to be advised?
I don't know if I was notified.
Okay.
But I do know who. I did check to see who my advisor was for this semester.
So if you haven't been contacted by your advisor, I would recommend reaching out to him or her to find out how they're doing advising. If they're doing in person, if they're doing remote. I doubt that they would be doing group advising, but I don't know. So I would just reach out to them, find out how you can schedule an appointment with them to be advised. Registration will start in about 2 weeks, so you have a little bit of time, but depending on how many advisees your advisor has, you want to not put it off, because it might be a little congested towards the end of advising period. Any other questions I can answer for you?
So how would I go about would I need an advisor for my minor if it's something that's from a different college?
Yeah, so what will happen is your assistant dean will sign off on the minor. So depending on if you were a sophomore and you're coming to our office, we could just contact the registrar's office and let them know you're adding a minor. Once a student has 60 credits, and for any number of reasons, a lot of students don't declare a minor, maybe because they don't know what that is, until they have junior standing. And junior standing is going to be 60 credits or more. And so at that point, you're going to your assistant dean for that signature to add the minor. So under 60 credits, students are coming here to change their major, minor, drop a class. Anytime you have 60 credits or more, you're going to your college's assistant dean to add that minor on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. And the minors, I don't know if you've noticed, that can also be found over here on the catalog as well. There's just a section for undergraduate minors. And just scroll down, select your college, and then the minors are listed here. Sometimes those are not as easy to find when you're kind of skimming through the booklet. So a little tab there for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke, for all of this really helpful information. I learned a lot myself. The catalog looks a whole lot different than it did when I was in school. So this was really helpful and informative for me as well. So thank you, Emily, for joining us today. And thank you to all the students who will watch this. I will include as well our upcoming second year experience program. So we have 2 more sessions left, and I just added those into the chat. I also would love to share my screen really quickly to just show, if you haven't seen it already, our second year experience shirt, which we're very excited about. So let me go ahead and share this guy. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is our second year experience shirt. So from attending this session, you will be entered into a drawing to win one of these shirts. So hope you like it. We worked really hard on trying to get a design that was going to be appealing to a lot of students. So definitely be on the lookout for an email from me. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Emily.